Martin's Press was like, well, we'll take it. And so we wrote the book, and, the book came out, and it was really did well. So
Yeah, it did.
yeah,
It did really fucking well.
yeah, yeah.
Man. And then, I mean, you've created, I mean, I think I counted 7 businesses. I'm probably off, but am I off?
Um,
You got the podcast, Extreme Ownership, the kids' book, which is going to be a movie, Origin, Jocko Fuel.
Yeah.
Fuck, what am I missing?
Jocko Publishing.
Jocko Publishing,
Yeah.
the soccer club,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
jiu-jitsu gym.
Yeah,
There's
that's
8.
true. Yeah, that's true. Get some stuff.
You
going
lost
on.
count.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at it and people ask me about this. So the podcast thing, I went on Tim Ferriss's podcast, and when we got done, he said, "Hey dude, you should start a podcast." And then I went on, Joe Rogan heard that podcast and was like, invited me on his podcast. And this was 2015. Like, podcasts weren't really a thing yet.
Yeah, you are an OG podcaster.
Yeah.
I mean, way before anybody even knew what the hell it was.
Yeah. I think the numbers at the time, there was about 15% of the population of America was listening to podcasts. I don't know if it's 100% now, but it's pretty much everybody. But I went on Rogan, in the middle of Rogan's show. He's like, "You should start a podcast." Of course, Rogan tells that to everybody. But he told me that, and I said, "All right." So I got Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan, like 2 massive podcasts, are telling me I should start a podcast. So I talked to my buddy Echo Charles, and I said, "Do you know how to do this?" And he said, "I'll figure it out." And then next day he came back and was like, "All right, I know how to do this." And I said, "Cool." He said, "Can I be on it?" And I said, "What are you going to do?" And he said, "You be Jocko and I'll be normal." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so that's how the podcast started. And then once the podcast started, it was just, people would ask me about like what kind of supplements I used. And I was like, well, here's what I would like to use, and why don't I make what I like? And then people would ask me about jiu-jitsu gis, and there was a company up in Maine, New England, where I'm from. And this guy, Pete, was up there making jiu-jitsu gis 100% in America. And I was like, get those kind of gis, because those are American made. And I ended up linking up with him, and Origin kind of took off, and Jocko Fuel kind of took off. And it was just, yeah. And then the kids' books were somewhere in there. I was trying to get my son was not like a reader, right? He was a little kid. So I went to try and find him like something that he might be interested in, right? And I picked up this book, and it was like a pirate book. And I was like, cool, pirates. What young boy isn't going to be into pirates? And I read this book, and it was the lamest, weakest, most pathetic pirates ever. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to read this to my son. And I just decided I'll write my own books for kids. And so, and the idea of the first Warrior Kid book was just like immediately in my mind. The whole thing, like start to finish, I had the whole thing in my mind almost immediately. And it seems obvious, right? Like there's a kid, like all kids, who can't do any pull-ups, doesn't know his times tables, doesn't know how to swim, and he's getting picked on by the school bully, right? You go to any kid in the world, they've got one of those problems or a problem like those problems. And so I put those problems in the book, and then I brought in a character, Uncle Jake, who's a SEAL, who is going to come stay with, the family for the summer. And he's going to teach this kid how to fight, how to eat right, how to exercise, how to study, and how to swim. And that's the first book.